This is Scott Wilkins, the Backstage View. We're sitting here with Michael Hall. Michael Hall, it's a pleasure to meet you. Michael
It's good to meet you.
is involved in many things, including Bluegrass documentary films.
I am, but I don't make them. I try to get them shown to Bluegrass audiences.
And I think that's a great thing.
Yeah, it's a kind of strange how I developed. I don't really have any background in film, but I discovered that there's quite a few good Bluegrass documentary films being made, and they're being shown at film festivals. But they're not being shown at Bluegrass festivals or any place where Bluegrass fans would necessarily be. And so they're primarily being shown to people who are not interested in the content as much as they are in the technology and the like and the filmmaking aspects of it. So it turns out that I was starting a new Bluegrass festival called Bluegrass on Broadway in 2008.
Where was that?
That's in Redwood City, California, just south of San Francisco. And basically, I discovered that there were some films that needed to be shown, so we added a day of film in as part of a 3-day Bluegrass festival. One day was going to be the film festival, and it went very well. And we've had plenty of interest from filmmakers and from people who live in the San Francisco Bay Area. And we've been doing it every January ever since. And it's been kind of fun. And then the latest iteration of this is that one of our filmmakers who showed regularly at that festival started a festival in his home state of Arizona, James Reams and the Arizona Bluegrass Association. And they're doing a 2-film festival. They did one last October, and they're doing one about a week from now in Scottsdale. And then
What does that mean, a 2-film festival? That
means that they're not
with music too?
No, it means that they are doing a standalone day of films where they're showing 2 feature films back to back, and
Do they have like the director come by to talk? Or?
I'm not sure what they're doing this year. I did find out about it, that they were doing it, and so basically I know that it's happening, and I know it happened last year, but as to whether the filmmakers are coming, I suspect that they are. But anyway.
We're here at the IBMAs in Raleigh, North Carolina,
Right.
and you were invited here to help run the documentary films that we are. So you're making some
IBMA heard about the film festival in California and asked me if I would help start one for the IBMA, and it's held at the convention. So it's, again, part of a larger event. And what we're doing is we're showing 1 film each during the business conference, one on Tuesday afternoon and one on Wednesday afternoon. And then on the weekend, we're showing a total of 9 films, including the 2 from earlier in the week, so that it's more like a festival there at that point. And that's the part here in Raleigh that's open to the public and is free. And so everybody can come and see the films. And we do have some of the filmmakers come by and talk to us. And in fact, Scott was just showing the films for the festival here, which is how we met. And we just finished our showing of Give Me the Banjo.
And yesterday was the Sam Bush documentary,
That's
which was
right.
Fascinating.
Very fascinating. Both of these are very excellent films. So the story here is that the IBMA wanted to do it, and I was asked to head up the committee. And we have a committee of people that help select the films, and the IBMA staff helps us put out the word and gather up the films and make them available for review. And then we select some of the films and show them. And this is our 2nd year, so it's still a very young, plastic kind of thing, and we're kind of inventing it as we go along. Thus far, it seems very well received.
And you're involved in other festivals as well, you were saying.
Yeah, I am the president of the Northern California Bluegrass Society, which is basically the San Francisco Bay Area and the Monterey Bay Area, 2 kind of Northern California zones. And that's an area that's got a large population, and we kind of do the local bluegrass events there.
How do people find you in that area?
How do they find us? Well, we have a website, ncbs.us. That's the Northern California Bluegrass Society initials, of course. And then you have to watch the very patriotic domain name on the end. It's not .org or .com, it's .us. So ncbs.us has all of our events on it. And we have some very large festivals in our area that we don't do. Our club doesn't do them. The world's largest bluegrass festival is Hardly Strictly Bluegrass, which is actually this coming weekend in Golden Gate Park in San Francisco. And that is a huge event. It has about 750,000 people over 3 days. Pretty large. And so we have big festivals, and
now
there are
your
others.
typical festival, in as much as everyone has to clear out at night, there's no sleeping over
This
or
is
hanging out.
true,
But
yes.
the lineup is ridiculous on top of ridiculous.
It is.
And it's free.
And it's free. It's a totally free festival. The late Warren Hellman put it together, and also left an endowment in his will that my understanding is that the festivals will continue for at least another 20 years based on his money alone. And these festivals are very expensive to put on. I mean, it's a huge, millions of dollars budget. And again, it's totally free.
Well, who besides, it's hardly strictly bluegrass, so there's non-bluegrass people, and usually, I don't know who's coming this year, but usually the names are enough to knock your socks off.
Absolutely. They have all the biggest names, and then, of course, as the name indicates, it's hardly strictly bluegrass. And so they want to integrate bluegrass into a broader musical mix, and most of it is closely related, but some of it's pretty far field. They have some hip-hop acts, but not many, and some rock acts, but not many. But mostly it's roots music with a very substantial representation of bluegrass and all the biggest names. And so that makes it very good. And what it does is it introduces bluegrass to people who may not know what it is, but it's free, so you can go check it out. And besides, there's other bands that they may know better, and then they'll see a lot of bluegrass over the course of the weekend.
And in a way, isn't what you're trying to do similar, similar in as much as you're trying to bring the art of film
Yes.
into the festival scene?
Exactly. Yeah, this is kind of going back to the original concept, which is that these films that we show are mostly documentaries, and they tell different elements of the bluegrass story, the story of a particular musician, the story of a particular instrument, the story of a movement in bluegrass or a style in bluegrass. And what this does is, if you're a person who listens to live bluegrass, you will appreciate the music much more if you have that background information.
Right.
And so, but so amazing stories are on documentary film.
Yeah.
There was a film called Banjo Romantica, which we showed at this festival last year, and it's the story of bluegrass music in Czechoslovakia, now, of course, the Czech Republic. But the interesting thing is, bluegrass got a start under communism. A very entertaining, interesting story, and it affected how bluegrass developed in Europe, because when the wall came down, Czechoslovakia emerged as the leading bluegrass hotspot of Europe, which is amazing because it's not a place you would normally associate with that.
Right. Eastern Europe.
And so it's just an example of some of the background information that you get. So what this does is it enhances the overall bluegrass experience for the average fan. And in order to make this available, you got to go where those fans are. They're unlikely to say, go to a film festival. Maybe they do, but not specifically as bluegrass fans. But if the films are shown at bluegrass festivals.
That's fantastic.
So one way to do it is you can do it as a film festival within a larger festival, which is what we're doing here at IBMA. The other way you can do it, though, is you could show a single film at a other bluegrass festival that would sort of like be an extra band on the schedule, and it wouldn't really replace anything that you'd normally be doing, but it would be an additional opportunity for the interested people to come see it.
And I'd like to add that when you have a documentary, as we just saw, about the banjo, it's so much more than that. It's really history, with the banjo being part of it,
Right.
but they really tell much more of a story, in as much as if you don't think you're interested in the banjo, you might think, oh, I don't know that I'd like that movie, where that's not the case. The banjo's really the main component, yet we learn so much about so many artists
Yes.
through this.
And also, that's the thing about music is partly a physical experience and an intellectual experience, but it's also cultural. And music is always embedded in various cultural opportunities. And that's the kind of thing that this film that we just saw, The History of the Banjo, brought out, is how it relates to American culture and to other events that have happened over the history of this country, and how it's used today.
So you're involved in a few different festivals.
Yes, indeed.
You're involved in what do we call the .us? What was that?
The website is our Bluegrass Society's website, the Northern California Bluegrass Society, and that is the website that provides information about all of our
Right.
activities.
Which was what was that website for
Yeah.
that area?
It's www.ncbs.us,
Okay.
and that's the initials of the Northern California Bluegrass Society.
So you run the society, you have numerous festivals, and then
Yeah.
I heard you also have another part-time day job that you also do sometimes?
Well, I practice law in Redwood City, California, and so this is my volunteer stuff. This is the fun
Right.
stuff. And
But interestingly, though, because of the documentaries, the law that you practice has to do a lot with intellectual, what would the word be?
Property, intellectual property,
and
yes.
that happened to have been as the director to these films were speaking with the audience. There were a few people in the audience who had a lot of interest in that. That's right up your alley, too. It's a pretty fascinating topic.
It is a fascinating topic, and intellectual property is getting to be more and more important in the American economy. And of course, in Silicon Valley, which is where I am, it's not only music, art type stuff, but it's also software,
But
chips, and that sort of thing as well.
Regarding the music, though, when they put out a documentary like this, just briefly explain the behind-the-scenes work that has to go on.
Yeah, one of the biggest barriers to success in making bluegrass documentary films or any type of music film is that it's all about the music. And the music is, of course, mostly subject to copyright, and therefore permission has to be obtained to use every single piece of music, each song, each performance. And that takes quite a bit of work. And so the film we just saw, the filmmaker told us that he had 95 segments of film that had to be cleared before he could actually show the film. And of course, this involves individual negotiations with each of the copyright holders, which, by the way, is more than 95, because many copyrights, in fact, most copyrights, have divided ownership. And so you have to negotiate with multiple owners to obtain permission for a single piece of historic
And
performance.
I think translated, and the key is go out and write some music, because that stuff is going to be valuable forever if anyone wants to
It can be
use it.
valuable, and we're hoping the bluegrass music becomes even more valuable.
Yes.
But that is a challenge, and actually in the course of running film festivals now for about 9 years, we have had several films that were promised to us, and the film was finished, all sorts of stuff, but at the last minute they had to be withdrawn from the festival because they had one holdout of an owner who wouldn't sign off on the rights to the film or at a reasonable
It seems
price.
like that should be taken care of before they.
Yeah, it's. I would advise people who are making music documentaries, especially, to focus on which songs they're going to want, and if possible, obtain the rights as early as possible. Partly to avoid stress at the end, and also possibly to obtain better deals in negotiation.
Right.
Because the essential element is, if you wait until after your film is done, then you have to do surgery on the film to remove a particular piece. Whereas if you're planning your film but you haven't shot it yet, or you haven't committed to any particular song yet, if permission for one song is not available, you can use a different
Right.
song instead with much greater ease.
Right. It also changes the dynamic in as much as if I go to you and say, look, we're making a film, we're thinking of using your music,
Yes.
as opposed to, hey, we made it, it's done.
Right.
What are
right.
you going to charge me?
And of course, the other element of this is that many bluegrass documentary filmmakers are working out of a labor of love. They are interested in the subject, they're committed to the music, but they are not necessarily munificently financed, nor is there a huge commercial market for the film. And so if they end up having to spend a lot of money, in whatever capacity, intellectual property rights or filming or whatever it is, that makes budget stress very significant.
Michael, if there's anyone that wants to shoot you an email, any kind of question on anything, is there a way they could?
Yes, indeed. My email address is hallmw, so that's HALLMW @gmail.com, and I'll be happy to talk to anybody about it. And by the way, we are constantly issuing calls for films for our upcoming festivals. And so if you check either the IBMA website or the Northern California Bluegrass Society website, you'll find out the deadlines for submitting films for consideration for our future events. And so it's one in September and one in January. So there's usually some kind of pending open period to submit. And that just lets us get all the films in so we can look at them all at once and decide which ones that we want to try to include in the next festival.
Fantastic.
So we're having fun doing it. Bluegrass is fun. Bluegrass people are very nice.
Yes.
And it's been fun actually getting involved in all of this type of project.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Scott, for
Appreciate it.
taking an interest.
All right.